my name's Alex Pickering. I'm the Marketing Director for Kenwood, DeLonghi and Browne here in the UK. And I'd like to start by telling you about our relationship with EPE. They're our sole distributor in the independent sector for all of our three brands, Kenwood, DeLonghi and Browne. And today we're here because we're going to be launching a new range of kMix kitchen appliances, and you're going to hear a bit more about that in a minute. I'd like to introduce as well Miranda Gore Browne, who's a finalist on Great British Bake Off. In fact, Mary Barry nicknamed you the
Ice Biscuit Queen.
Ice Biscuit Queen, and said that you reminded of her when she was younger as well. Yeah. And speaking of biscuits, one of Miranda's books is called Biscuit. In fact, a more recent book of hers, let me get the name right, is Bake Me a Cake as Fast as You Can. So, didn't bring any with her today, but we're gonna see some recipes in action in a minute. Miranda also has her own cookery school as well. You can find out details about that at mirandagorebrowne.co.uk. Follow her on Twitter as well, #MirandaBakes. So let's first of all hear a bit more about the kMix range before we then see the product in action. So I'd like to introduce a colleague of mine, Hannah Walsh, who's going to tell us a bit more about the kMix range. So over to you, Hannah.
Hello, I'm Hannah. I'm the UK Product Manager for Kenwood, and it is a delight to be able to launch the new kMix range to you here at the Spring Fair. You may or may not know that Kenwood are 70 years young this year. We like to say that we're young rather than old, and we are incredibly proud of our British design and engineering heritage. For us, the kitchen is very much the part of the home, and there's a huge trend about knocking through that kind of partition wall that people built up between the dining room and the kitchen, and really opening that space up again. So it's really important that a product not only looks good, because that's very important, but also that it works really, really well. So in terms of aesthetic, the kMix range has been completely updated. It's moved from much more of a retro feel onto a much more kind of contemporary look and feel, and we're really focusing on those core 4 colours. Red is a really expressive colour, sort of get in the kitchen, get involved. Then also working with like a really high gloss matte black, white, and also a nice rich cream too. In terms of the range as a whole, there's really something for everybody. So depending on what stage you're at in your culinary journey, there is something for everybody. So anything from a little hand mixer just to get you started if you're into baking, all the way up to, of course, the sort of iconic hero stand mixer, which we have as well. And the wonderful thing about kMix stand mixer is that we have upped it, so it's now an 1000-watt motor. But it's not just about being a stand mixer. It doesn't just make cakes. However, we are going to be making some wonderful baked delights for you. It's also about the versatility of the machine. You may or may not know that kMix has a slow speed attachment on the front, like a little cap that pops off, and it basically allows you to run a massive variety of attachments, things like a meat grinding attachment, for those of you who are very brave, a sausage making attachment, but also everything that you want to make inside the bowl. So in terms of a range, like I said, it's something for everybody on that journey. I'm actually going to pass over to Miranda now because she does the really exciting bit, and she's going to make some lovely baked goods for you. But thank you very much.
Thank you. So without further ado, I think we need to get baking in true British Bake Off style. I've got a nice little workstation here to get on with, and actually obviously being filmed as well. So what we're going to make is a chocolate chip cookie dough brownie, and I wanted to make this as a recipe I've developed with Kenwood quite recently. I wanted to make it because it's a really versatile recipe, and it's a bit of a twist on a standard brownie, and we're going to give it a bit of a Valentine's twist. We've even managed to find a bit of a Valentine's pan as well, a lovely heart-shaped pan to make it in. And I like a recipe that can do lots of different things, and I also am always baking, as you can imagine, with what I do, but mainly because I love baking. And what I love about this as well is the fact that we've got the glass bowl, so you can really see what's going on, and I think that's important not just for people like me who are baking because that's what I do all the time, but for people who are baking at home as well, because people come into your kitchen. I think we've moved away from that era where we used to think everything had to be ready. I mean, we used to have people for lunch when I was little, and my mum would be baking things, and she'd always be saying, you know, you go and meet the people, I'm almost finished. Whereas now I think we want everyone to come in and see what we're doing, and whether that's, you know, you're making some dough with the bread or you're just mixing up an icing, and it's such a lovely icebreaker at home, and it's such a lovely way for people to get involved in what you're making and what you're doing. So I'm just going to start first of all to pop something on the side. So we're going to make a bit of an indulgent ganache to go on this brownie. So if anyone has made a ganache before, anyone made ganaches before? I might have some audience participation, watch out. So what you need to do is always melt exactly the same amount of chocolate, and it needs to be less than 50% cocoa chocolate. So I've made one in my Blue Peter fashion I prepared earlier, which is actually a milk chocolate ganache. But we're just going to do a dark chocolate one. I'm just going to show you because it's just quite nice to come away from this with lots of different tips, isn't it? So these are 180 gram bars, and then I'm going to do exactly the same amount, zero my scales, 180 grams of double cream. And then what I would normally do is just pop that on a bain-marie until it starts to melt, and then stir it together. So ganache is a really versatile thing as well, and it's a lovely way to get creative because you can add your twist to it. And I think that's what we're talking today about, is sort of getting creative in the kitchen. So I'll also drop in some tips from Mary Berry as well. Now we don't need to make our butter really squidgy, but one of the few tips that Mary did share with us, in fact it wasn't actually on the bake-off, it was before we got through to the final part of the bake-off, was in one of the rounds we had to make one of her cakes in a cookery school in London. And after we'd all finished, she said, well, quite a few people could have done with softer butter. So the softer your butter, the lighter your cakes. Now we're just going to start, this is actually not for the cake mix, this is for our lovely cookie dough. But even if you're making biscuits, it's really important to have soft butter. Now what Mary does, and told us after we'd made the cakes, was chops her really hard butter into chunks and puts it in a bowl of warm water, just hand warm water, and drains it. And anyone who comes to my classes frequently says to me that was so useful because they have butter and it's either too hard or they put it in the microwave and then it goes too oily. Someone's nodding in the audience, have done that. So I've got butter, and then I've got my 2 types of sugar, a lovely soft brown sugar, so soft, and a caster sugar. Okay, and then I've got 1 egg. Always break it into something. I always say to people, always make sure you break it into something, and then I do a demo like this and I don't follow my own advice and end up putting shell in it. 1 egg. And I'm just going to put all the ingredients in together. And I've got plain flour. This is going to give a lovely crunchy base to our brownie. And I just think that's a really nice twist. Let's just check what else I need. Pinch of salt. Where's my salt to do audience participation at this point? And then my baking powder. 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. So this is a bit like a sort of an American chocolate chip brownie at the bottom of our cookie at the bottom of our brownie. So 1.5. If you do the bake-off, you have to be very accurate with your measuring. Paul Hollywood would be watching at this point saying, were you measuring it accurately? Were you using digital scales? Were you being really accurate? Okay, so let's check with everything. Put that in. And then a lovely slow start. And I've got the kMix in there. But it's so nice, isn't it? You can actually see what's going on. And it's great, if you're rushing, as you can imagine from my book title, I'm often rushing to make things and to get things done. It's really nice because you can walk away and come back, and it's a lovely visual tool. So if you're teaching people, whether that be your children or you're getting other people involved, like if you do meringues, you get that beautiful lift and you can see it in the bowl, you can see that it's doubled in height, which I think makes it so much more visual and so much more creative. So you're going to cream that together. There we go. And then I'm going to add the essential chocolate chips when that's come together. And don't worry if you think it's too crumbly. Often with biscuits, people think at this point it's too crumbly, and then they'll say, well, add a bit of milk, we'll add a bit of butter, add another egg. And actually you don't want to. We want to use the energy from this lovely machine to bring it together into that gorgeous, slightly sticky dough. So if you're making it by hand, it will take a lot longer to get that energy into it, but obviously we've got the lovely kMix here. A bit more last. There you go, coming together in lovely dough. And then at the last bit, we're just going to add these chocolate chips. I've got dark chocolate chips, but if you've got a thing about white chocolate chips or you've got chunks of something else nice left in the cupboard, then use that instead. Just add that in. Okay. There we go. Lots of different things. I never stop thinking about food. I was thinking about the other day to the original application form we did for the bake-off, and it's funny, I'd read it back quite recently because someone had done a sort of interview about it, and one of the things I said, it said, how often do you bake? And I remember I'd written something like, I'm usually baking, and if I'm not baking, I'm thinking about baking and what I'm going to bake next. And I think that's still really true, so that's not bad going, is it? However many years on since I did the bake-off. Lots of different things. I love flavours and different components, and I like different textures, and I like it when you can have one recipe that you can twist and change. I think if we're all really honest, we've probably got you know, 4 or 5 recipes that we do a lot, and it's quite nice to have another one that you can then do and vary and make it personal as well. So lots of different things, seasonal inspiration, or just things that I really like, you know, trying out and experimenting. So I'm literally going to press it down into the bottom here. It's like one big heart-shaped biscuit. In fact, you could use this recipe just to make a massive heart-shaped chocolate chip cookie. Now, I haven't made it in this tin before, so I'm going to have to work out quite whether I need all of it or not, but I thought it was just too irresistible. This lovely, it's a Creuset tin just around the corner, and I thought it was irresistible, this lovely heart-shaped tin when we were doing a Valentine's brownie. So now, this is a brownie recipe where what I've done is I've melted the chocolate and the butter, so that's just here, melting. I've just put it in some warm water there just to keep it melted, because we've just got one little hob here. So that's chocolate and butter melted. And again, the nice thing about this is that if you don't like really dark chocolate, you could use like a Bourneville, or my children at home really like it when we do it with a milk chocolate. So don't be fearful about being experimental. You know, it's about getting in the kitchen and using, you know, these fantastic pieces of kit to make really scrumptious things. So we've got our sugars, and for brownie, if you want a really sort of fudgy texture to the brownie, I always recommend putting some soft brown sugar in. It really makes a difference. And sugars are quite important. One of the mistakes people often make with recipes is that they think, oh, I've only got cast sugar in, so I'll use that, and then they don't get that lovely consistency. So it is important to do that, and I think it's just, you know, it is useful to have sort of baking larder with bits and pieces in. It's amazing, it's gone a bit crunchy already. So let's pop this in. Soft brown sugar, cast sugar, okay, and then we've got 4 eggs. It's always when you're rushing on the bake-off is when you'd end up getting shell into it or something would happen. So many times you'd have so many people asking you questions at once that you know, it's so easy to leave things off. I think we did a souffle. I think we were the only year that actually did a souffle as a technical challenge. And poor David, one of the contestants of my year, he forgot to put his egg yolks back in. So we had an egg white souffle, so it didn't work at all. It was just so awful. It's so easily done when people are coming and interrupting you and asking you questions. There we go. I'll just break that up a little bit. And then we're going to whisk that together with this lovely balloon whisk. Then you can really see what's going on. And I love the fact that it's got a slow start. I'm always quite bad at big things, so I sometimes forget to put my lid on, so it's good that it has a slow start for people like me, because then it doesn't fly everywhere. And this has got a great safety mechanism as well, so if I start to lift it up, it will switch off. Which I think is really good, particularly if you've got a family that you're baking with or you've got younger ones. So I don't know if it's the same in everyone else's house who's got children that are baking, but there's always got to be someone who controls the mixer. Is one of the key roles in baking with my children. Okay. Now, because it's a brownie, can everyone still hear me? Good. Nice quiet noise on this one. Okay, so I've got plain flour, I've got cocoa powder, I'm going to put some vanilla as well, and I've also got my baking powder. Looks very good. There we go. I'll add this half a teaspoon of baking powder to my plain flour. And I also want my salt again. So if you, it sounds crazy to add salt, I always use unsalted butter, so that's here in the melted chocolate mixture. And then I add salt for recipes that I think want to have a bit more of a kick. So if you're ever cooking with chocolate, it's really good to put a bit of a pinch of salt in. It really brings out the flavour. Just put that in there. Okay, look how lovely that is in the way that it's whisked up. So you can really see, this is sort of like the creative baking in front of you. You can actually see what's happening. So when a recipe says now, until it's pale and fluffy or until it's doubled in size, the great thing about the glass bowl here is you can actually see what we're doing. And you can see it's changed consistency. Now, there we go. So if I was being really, really bake-off, I would now sift all of this in. I would sift it in because on the bake-off everybody loves it when you sift. So as soon as you start to get a sieve out and it's going all dramatic like this, everyone goes, can you just stop a minute, Miranda? We'd just like to get the sieving action. So I haven't got a sieve actually, I'm just going to check there's no lumps in that. So we're going to pop in our cocoa, our flour and baking powder, and then also we're going to put in some vanilla extract. And we're going to use this lovely folding mechanism because we don't want to knock all that air we've got into the eggs out. And I use this folding mechanism loads on so many different recipes. I can't tell you. I've turned it the wrong way now. Is that on it? No, that's on it. I use it such a lot because so often I do things where I've whisked lots of air in, like a madeleine or a macaron or something, and then I don't want to knock that lovely air out. And even if you're making a normal sponge cake, it makes a real difference to have a really gentle mechanism on it. To get a helper to do it from that side. Any volunteers? No volunteers? Come on, you can pour it in for me. Just pour it in that side for me, just in case I don't embarrass myself by pouring it in completely wrong side. Down this lovely big extra wide sheet towel, that would be brilliant, thank you. Oh, there you go, look, see how luscious that looks, that looks great. I was doing a demo, a Kenwood demo a few years ago, and at this point I said, does anybody want to come and lick the bowl? And I had a microphone on like this, and it was like I'd switched a magnet on the front, and everyone just like hit it like that, like children, every age group, everything. It was like, I think I became sort of, you know, like the hub of the store for the rest of the day. Okay, just check it's all mixed in. Now, obviously, we're not cooking here. I've got a Blue Peter one, don't worry. I prepared earlier. But normally you preheat your oven to 170 degrees. Brownie needs quite a low, even temperature. Don't ever put it at the top. Have it like in the middle to the lower part of your oven. Okay, and as we know, we like our brownies on the side of squidgy, don't we? So you don't want to overcook them. This takes about 35 to 40 minutes. But you just need to be careful if your oven is a bit fiercer than that. I did one the other day and it was in a slightly different tin. And it took quite a lot less time. Okay. So we've got our cookie dough base, and what we're going to do, so I have a little wipe, is we're going to pour this on top. I'll just check I've got all of the flour folded in. Don't want any pockets of flour. I think that was a bit that just fell on the top. Let's just check. There, it's beautiful. And look, completely combined. We haven't got any sticky bits around the edges. It's not clung to the bowl. It's absolutely perfect. So leave that for a minute. Checking everyone can still see. And you don't need to pre-bake this beforehand. You just need to have it like that, and it will bake in the oven at the same time to give you a lovely crunchy base to your brownie. And what I love about this is that the chocolate sort of starts to firm up almost as you're working with it. You can see it's already starting to get quite thick and a bit more set than it was even when it was in the bowl. So what you just want to do is, this is now already started to get a bit firmer because that chocolate cools quite quickly. And then you could be really ordered, put it around the outside. I don't tend to do very ordered baking. Anyone who knows my baking, I prefer it a bit more haphazard than that. So we just pop them on the top. Okay, and that's about 150 grams of raspberries. Okay, and I think that just makes a fantastic Valentine's treat. There we go. And if you pop them on the top like this, rather than push them in, then you'll find that they will sink in, but they won't sink right to the bottom. Don't wash them. I know that sounds dreadful, isn't it? If there's any bits on them, just brush them off with a piece of kitchen roll or something. Don't wash fruits if you're going to use it in baking, because if you do, it adds so much more water, then your whole mixture will be affected and your whole measurements will be affected. So that will then go into the oven, and we will get it out, and it will look a little bit like, it's a different shape tin, so be prepared, it's not a complete repeater effort. And it will look a bit like this. Okay. But what we're going to do is we're going to pop that one in there, as if we're going to bake it. Ooh. Pop that in. And then what I've done is I've made a delicious ganache. So that's this one here that we were saying earlier. And what I've done is I've made one here, and I made it with milk chocolate. I just thought it was nice to sort of have a few changes. And what you need to do with ganache, you need to be careful not to refrigerate it too much. So if you leave it in the fridge, you can put it in the fridge, but then you have to bring it back to room temperature. As soon as you start trying to, well, maybe you're more efficient than me. Whenever I've tried to sort of microwave it or warm it in the oven, I always find that it starts to split. So this is the way that I always do it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some of the sea salt, because we're all, I'm sure, big fans of the salted caramel. And I think that's a perfect sort of Valentine's-y treat. So let's just get that. I'm going to do a teaspoon of the sea salt, and it's really important to use the flakes. You don't get the same kick and the same flavour from just normal salt. It just never has that same sort of depth of flavour. And then we're going to put in 3 tablespoons, and this is a real cheats ingredient. don't work for these guys, but I use this the whole time. Really handy to have in the cupboard. A bit of the Nestle caramel in a tin. You can use dulce de leche if you've got some, or if you've got a nice sort of caramel sauce that you've bought for ice cream or something. Okay. Now hopefully that's going to be tin. This isn't very warm, so I might have to just warm it a bit. Okay, so you could keep it a bit runnier, and then it would be more like a hot chocolate salted caramel sauce. But I've got it a bit more like an icing, really. Yeah, it's a really lovely consistency. And you want to have those flakes still in there, so you get that pop of flavour. You know, we're talking about getting creative in the kitchen, you know, inspiring people to get cooking and get baking. There we go. So let's pop this out of its tin. Out now. It's coming. There we go. There we go. And then it gives it a bit more. Okay, and then we're going to pop this on top to make it even more indulgent, because obviously it's terribly low fat and healthy anyhow. Okay. You don't have to put this on, you can have it like a chocolate sauce or just have it simply as it is, and that's what I mean about having sort of variations and making it your own and being able to personalise it. Okay. Someone will definitely want to lick that bowl. I think there's probably a list of people who want to lick that bowl. Okay, so I'm just going to do a thin layer like this. And obviously, if you want to do it more like a sauce, you could serve the brownie hot and have it like a pudding. But obviously, we haven't done that this way. So I'm just going to nudge it up to the edges like that. Someone might have been stealing it already from my bowl. There we go. And then I've made some very pretty, I don't know if anyone's into sort of making things with natural things and edible flowers. I do a lot of that, and I've done some crystallised rose petals, which I thought probably better not do if you've been given a beautiful bunch of red roses by someone, but I just went and bought some red roses. There we go. So let's just do it like that. Get more there. There you go. So, pretty luscious. And I've done some little crystallised rose petals. So this is just when you do stiffened egg white, beat up your egg white, and then brush your rose petals with the egg white and sprinkle with caster sugar and let them dry. But I thought that was quite pretty to have like as a little Valentine's-y nod really to being Valentine's Day. So that's rather sweet. And then I've also got some little tiny sprinkles, so if you prefer more of a simpler route that maybe you don't have to do so much preparation for, you could have these little. So I've done my. See, I said I wasn't very ordered. It's random. There we go. And then I've also got these sweet little heart-shaped sprinkles here. Okay, so these are rather sweet as well, a bit Valentine's-y. So there we go. Hopefully someone might make it for you as a Valentine's Day treat, but if not, there we go. It's a lovely Valentine's chocolate cookie dough brownie. I think you'll have a piece.